Hay from the Hashknife. See how I did that? Yeah, that was cheap. Well, we've looked a lot about how we put our hay up, how we fed it out, but we really haven't talked about the kind and the quality and what to look for. So I'll kind of run this through you a little bit and kind of explain some things. You can see how, for instance, this bale here on the bottom is nice and green. It's pretty good on the edge. This one is really light colored. That's sun bleached. And some of these bales are set out in a hay field before they got picked up, and then just kind of got bleached a little bit. This guy up on top here, you can see how it's kind of grayed out. And there's another one up here the same way over on this side that were bales that were on top of a stack. And so I tried to put those in the stack like there on top, because that's just called a little bit of waste or rot. And you can see on the sides here a little bit, you get a little bit of almost dark spot, a little mold starting. So you kind of want to minimize that as much as possible. What we're looking at here is alfalfa hay, straight alfalfa. And we normally don't feed this out, but we needed to this year because it was the best we could get. And looked at it, did this test on it. You reach in, and here's a good spot, and you pull that out, and you literally put your nose up there and you smell that, and you see all these leaves that are falling out. You're looking for sweet smell and no mold or, you know, any kind of a rot that's taken place on the inside of that as it was being put up, whether it was put up wrong with too much moisture or didn't let it get dry enough, which will cause it to rot. So those are all of some of the things you look at. This is really, really stemmy. You can see how big these stems are, which is okay for cows because they've got, you know, several stomachs. They can go ahead and process that in the rumen, and large and small stomachs. And then they, of course, cough it back up, for the want of a better word, and chew on it as cud and get some more out of it. Horses can't do that. Horses got a single stomach, actually a fairly small stomach. And so they need something a little bit better. And that's where we have our, here's a good example. Look at this line on this bale. That was a bale that was on the top of the stack when it came in, and I kept it on the top of the stack to absorb any moisture and not rot any further than like this bale. This is a really nice, pristine bale. And so this is, I've just got them staged here, so it's going to get fed out here pretty soon in the next 3-4 days. But this is just an example of where that rot goes down to and how far it can seep in. So anyway, we don't let our horses eat this stuff. We have this good grass hay over here. Now I'll use this stack as an example of storage, and you can see I've kind of stacked this in a long, I call them kind of a tube or a sausage look, where they're really tight together. I push these up with the tractor really tight. It's really hard to get much depth down inside of there, but when you pull those apart, and I pulled those just off of there this morning, how nice and green that is on the inside. I got a couple here that are falling apart because for whatever reason we lost the netting on it, and I'll just pick that up with the tractor. But same thing here. You can see how this sheds the water and a little bit of waste or rot on both sides of that, but the center, majority of that is really good, and they'll even eat that, especially the cows will eat that outside pretty well. This is a really good way to stack it. There's other ways to stack it where you put this on a flat side, and then a flat side's up, and then you stack a bale on top of it, just like this one's sitting. The problem with it is it sheds that water off to each side and down onto the bale below it, and it causes a lot more rot on those on the bottom. Similar to that, it doesn't get to shed off completely onto the ground like that does. It holds it. This comes down and then goes down to the bale below it. You'll also see these in a pyramid type shape where you have like 3 of them on the bottom and then 2 and then 1, and that's really bad because it catches all of the sides and runs out water off onto the next layer and the next layer below that, and really causes a lot of problem that way. The biggest drawback to stacking it this way is it takes a large hay corral to hold what we need to do. You can see how much hay is there. That's almost 100 ton, and it's in a relatively small spot where when it's in round bales like this, I can put about 350 ton into this hay corral here when it's stacked like this. So it takes a lot of real estate. Now here's a lone bale all by itself, and it looks a little bit yellow, and it is because it's not hay, it's straw. But even the straw, you can see the little bit of rot waste on the top there. This bale was actually brought in on a load of hay accidentally, so I'll use it. We'll just use it as some bedding. I normally don't use straw, but we'll do that. But this is really poor feed. There's really not much nutritional value in that straw. So, as it's straight straw, there's no grain or anything heads on top of that. So, the good part about straw is it's very, very inexpensive compared to the hay, and you can feed it. You can use that as a filler to get animals, through a winter, keep their bellies full, at least get something in them that they can use and eat, and then supplement them with either lick tubs with all of the vitamins, minerals, nutrients that are needed, and then put this in their belly to keep them full and keep that rumen working. But you would only do that on cattle. You can probably do it on sheep and goats as well, but this is kind of a tough way to go, and there are guys doing that this year because of the drought and because of the expensive hay that has occurred this year. So let's go talk about some of these supplements. So here's what's left of a pallet of pellets, and this is just some range cube, we call it. It's a 5/8 inch pelleted feed. I always call it cake. This is what we refer to when we call it cake, or used to be made out of cottonseed cake, but there's a lot of just grains, minerals, vitamins. The fact is, everything is labeled, and this is kind of gives a breakdown of that. It's a 16%. That's actually 3/4 cake instead of 5/8. My mistake. 16%. Got all your crude proteins, calcium, salts, potassiums, everything that you need that is going to be needed for continuing on a supplement of their diet. And this is what you can feed in addition to that straw out there, or you can also put in some tubs that's got the nutrients in it, that's a lick tub, like molasses type of base to it so that they'll eat it. Problem is, it's really hard to regulate that. When I do this, I put out, I try to give about 3 pounds per head per day, and I really only do it when it's really cold or if we just don't have the decent hay. So this year has been pretty good, even though we've had hay. It's been hay season with expensive hay, but we did get enough, and I have put some out on some of the cold days. Here we've got some block. This is just salt blocks. Those are 50 pounds a piece. The brown one is a salt with trace mineral, and the yellow is salt with sulfur, and then the blue is salt with cobalt. And I just put those out free choice. I let them have whatever they feel like having at the time, and at different times of the year, they will hit one of those harder than the other. And so I just let them take what they want. In addition to, there's Bandit the guard cat. This is a mineral that is specifically made for when the grass is dried up and not green, brown, cured out. And then I also mix this iodized salt with it. So you get 50 pounds of salt with 100 pounds of mineral, and I mix that up so that they can have that as well. And that seems to be a pretty good balance for them to not overeat the mineral, and they eat enough and then they need to go and get a drink. That salt drives them away from it, but then drives them towards water. So that really helps also with the supplemental portion of that. And then to top this off, we have our very last thing to show, and that's what we've got is our small square bales of horse hay that we've got in a barn covered. A more expensive type hay, but we use it for just a few horses at a time, where they're training, or if you had to keep one up for whatever reason for a while. We'll take a look at that. So here's our specialty hay, and it's not really special other than that it's in small squares. These are about 60 pounds a piece, about 16 inches wide and about 42 inches long, about 18 inches deep. And that 60 pounds or so makes it much easier to handle when you've just got a horse up, single horse, you're working them a lot in the training process, or in the wintertime when you've just got a single like that may or may not stick around in a spot, or if they have to be segregated from all the other horses. So this is just really good grass hay. This hay is actually, it'll be 2 years old this coming spring. So last year we weren't able to get any more hay like this, so it's a good thing that we had filled this into the barn up and could keep it covered, keep it fresh. It smells good, and it has not got any rot to it at all. It was put up right. So it'll keep for 3, 4, 5 years, surprisingly well, sometimes even longer in this humidity, a low humidity situation. So this is expensive, but at the same time, it's another use for it, another way for us to be able to feed in a special way and go from there. So we hope you've kind of liked this little bit on, hey, how we do things here. You guys have a good one.